Well, thank you for joining us today. It's Straight Up Solar's webinar, part of a broad series on how to go solar. Today, we're going to talk about how solar prevents climate change with Natalie Lucas. Just hold tight. We have some people coming in to the webinar. So just you're in the right spot. So grab a cup of iced tea or lemonade on a nice sunny day, and we'll get started.
Great. I think we're ready to go.
Okay, thanks, Natalie. Looks like everybody has joined us today. Again, welcome to Straight Up Solar's webinar on how solar prevents climate change. Natalie will be running our slide deck here. So if we go to the next slide, I'll introduce who our speakers are. My name is Schneider. I'm the Director of Business Development here at Straight Up Solar. I manage the group buy programs called Grow Solar St. Louis and Grow Solar Metro East, which we'll talk about towards the end of the program. Been with the company for a year, previously worked at the St. Louis Regional Chamber, where I was involved in sustainability issues and founded the Green Business Challenge. I'm really excited to have as our speaker today, Natalie Lucas, who's our content manager. She's been part of the Straight Up Solar team since 2017, and she manages our digital marketing initiatives here. She also started as a solar support specialist, talking directly to customers and getting them engaged in the solar process. I'll let Natalie explain a little more about herself when she begins her presentation. So with that, let me tell you a little bit of background about Straight Up Solar and who we are. We were founded in 2006 by an orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Dane Glick, who, when he was doing his residency work in Western Kentucky, was very much concerned about the mountaintop removal that was being used to extract coal that was being used for the power plants in that area. Not only was it affecting the air quality of Western Kentucky, but also what it was doing to the workers who was pulling that coal out of the mountains. So when Dane finished his residency, he vowed when he became a doctor to extend the notion of caring beyond his medical practice out to the community. And that's what Straight Up Solar is all about. The company that he founded has a vision to inspire a solar community to create a more sustainable world, because we're all part of a healthy future, and solar is all about delivering a healthy future to all of us here. So Dane started the company in 2006 by putting a solar array on his own home. It was pretty successful, got some buddies, started doing one array here, one array there. And now 14 years later, he's grown the company to 1,300 installations. We serve solar installations in Central Illinois, Southern Illinois, the Metro East, Urbana-Champaign area, Central Illinois with an office in Bloomington, and of course the St. Louis region here. We're proud mostly about two things. One is we're part of an amicus cooperative that allows us to group buy and share best practices all across the country of similar solar companies combined together. The amicus cooperative would be the third largest solar company. But for this presentation, what we're probably most proud of is being a certified B Corporation. We are evaluated by a third party called B Labs, which makes sure that we're putting people and planet above profitability. So we are joining 50,000 other companies all across the world, such as like Ben & Jerry's, Patagonia, King Arthur Flour, Method Soap, to make sure that business is a force for good in the world and really addressing some of the issues of climate change and what can businesses do to lessen the environmental impact here. So that's why we're really proud to take the time out to really explain how solar can help address climate change. So with that, let me introduce our speaker today is Natalie Lucas. And Natalie, let me turn it over to you. And thank you very much for taking the time to show how solar can address climate change.
For sure. Hello, everyone. Thank you for attending. I really appreciate it. I am going to go through this topic. I'm really excited to be talking about it. I have a couple of other hats in addition to working for Straight Up Solar. I serve on the National Board of Directors as the secretary currently, which basically means I get to help manage the work plans of the board of directors and like what we talk about and the agenda items that we discuss and everything. Sorry about that. My cat stepped on the keyboard, so I'm gonna go back in a moment. Anyway, apologies. Whoops, there we go. So I also, in addition to serving as the secretary of the board of directors, I am the founder and executive director of Care About Climate. So Care About Climate does communications and capacity building campaigns around the world for people to be able to get involved in climate action. We operate on all continents except for Antarctica, and bring tools and resources to young people so that they can do work on climate change. And I'm really excited about the work that we do there. We have everything from our Empoder Klima program that focuses on women in climate, and then to our online education platform called Climb Academy. So we get to do a lot of really cool things, and it's nice to be able to bring all of my passions together in the work that I do. So I get to talk about climate change a lot, and I'm excited to tell everyone about what it is, how it works, and what sort of impact solar has on it. So what is climate change? I want to start here because I don't want to make any assumptions about what folks know or don't know. But basically, there are different climates around the world, ranging from tropical to polar to dry. And what happens is, of course, weather changes from day to day. You can have a cold day or a hot day. But what climate change is really the change in those larger ecosystem climates. And so, for example, when you have dry areas and they become much drier, it becomes really hard for plants and animals and people to live. Or when your polar regions become less cold and start to have a lot of permafrost melting and ice melting, the way that climate typically won't function that way. And that makes it really hard to be able to know how to grow your plants, how to hunt, how to survive, and do everything. And so that's really what climate change is about the shifting of the actual climates of the planet and the climate overall. So if we're thinking about how climate change happens, basically we have an atmosphere, right? And we have a thin blanket above us. But what happens is if you put more greenhouse gases into the air, and greenhouse gases come from everything from coal-fired power plants. It's like the literal carbon dioxide and methane that you can see from the smokestacks that starts to release, and then it goes into the atmosphere. So there are a lot of greenhouse gases. There's water vapor, methane, nitrogen, but the one that we're really focused on, especially with relation to reducing fossil fuels, is carbon dioxide, because and methane's really important too, because it can actually trap heat more than carbon dioxide does. But carbon dioxide is the thing that comes out of most combustion processes. And so basically what happens is we're burning all this stuff, smoke and pollution are going into the air, and carbon dioxide is going into the air. The plants don't have the capacity to take all of it up. And so the blanket around the earth gets thicker and thicker, and it makes it too hot, basically, for the earth to function like it does, or that it should normally. And this causes the global temperatures to rise and has a negative impact on ecosystems that usually adjust to environmental change pretty slowly. And so we need to be trying to address this, and actually solar does a good job of that. In addition to thinking about like how the actual process of climate change happens, there's also huge consequences when it comes to social and economic impacts. When the ice starts to melt in the polar regions, the sea levels are going to start rising as well, which means that whole communities are going to have to move. It makes it really hard to grow crops in certain areas that are getting warmer and drier. It also makes it so that like hurricanes become more severe because of the way that like water is being absorbed and the currents are changing. All of this stuff really builds on itself and makes it really hard for humans to adapt to it too. So it's not only just like, it's both that it hurts people and planet and animals. so we all want to make sure that we are really taking care of that. And in order to stay pretty stable, we need to stay under 2 degrees Celsius on average of our warming. And so I say that on average because you can have places where it warms more significantly, like in the Arctic, where you're seeing more like a 3 to 4 degrees warmer. And then down in the equator area, you may not see as much. So it's taking an average, but they call this a tipping point, basically, where if you go above 2 degrees Celsius on average, you will start seeing larger consequences in like Earth atmosphere, and like how that will impact oceans and forests and everything else becomes pretty exponential. And then that is what eventually harms humans. So it's good to like consider all of this when we're really thinking about like why climate change is important, because it's helpful to address on so many levels. So that brings us to thinking about like, so what contributes to climate change? So one of the huge sectors that contributes to climate change is the energy sector, actually, which probably isn't surprising to you all as you are tuning in for this. But the way that the energy sector really contributes to climate change is through emissions, through their power plants, and then also through the actual mining of the fossil fuels that power the power plants. So basically the way that we produce energy in almost any given circumstance is we're trying to find an item that can turn a turbine. So when it comes to hydroelectric, water is turning the turbines that then are using magnetics to or magnets in order to fling off electrons. And so when we're thinking about nuclear, same thing. They're using that energy source of uranium and others to basically heat water in order to spin a turbine. Same with coal. You are using coal to burn to heat water to spin a turbine. Solar is actually one of the only energy sources that doesn't use any turbine related mechanism really to produce power. However, in Missouri and Illinois, a lot of the power is produced by coal-fired power plants. And this becomes a problem because it's because of the emissions that are related to that and the amount of air pollution that's also attributed to that. So coal-fired power plants provide 73% of Missouri's electric generation, and that's the third highest in the US. And about 10% of our state is powered by nuclear, and then the rest is like renewables, gas, and other items. Illinois, on the other hand, has a little bit more diverse portfolio. It's powered by 30% coal-fired power plants, 54% nuclear, 7% natural gas, and 10% renewables. So you're looking at like a broader spectrum of where they're getting their energy from. However, 1 ton of coal produces 204.3 pounds of CO2 emissions. And we use tons and tons and tons of coal every single day. And so that's directly leading to emissions. And then coal-fired power plants also produce coal ash, which and just general air pollution, which can harm people's respiratory health, as well as coal ash can get into waterways. So it's a pretty serious issue on a couple of different levels to try to remove ourselves from coal, as well as natural gas, because natural gas has actually a higher heat trapping capacity when it makes the blanket basically thicker when you're dealing with climate issues. So looking at kind of like where coal really is located. So this is from coal, but basically Missouri has some of the largest coal-fired power plants and the most power coming from coal in the nation. And their estimated mortalities, like in addition to like what's happening with the rest of the world, or early deaths because of coal. Either from like asthma attacks, heart and cardiovascular issues, or just like different other respiratory issues that can come up. And so if you look around like St. Louis, which is where we're based, we have a ton of coal-fired power plants and a lot of coal ash ponds that are contributing to air pollution and to climate change. Actually, East St. Louis is also an environmental justice community because some of the worst air quality in the nation is found in this region, which is a huge issue. Also because a lot of poor communities, including like Black communities, are there, and they are more exposed to health issues because of this. So it's a big problem, and you can kind of see where coal-fired power plants are throughout the state. Actually, Springfield is working on trying to get rid of their coal-fired power plants and move to 100% renewable energy, which is really exciting. So then looking at Illinois, this is kind of giving you just a scope of where the coal-fired power plants are and what their respective mortalities are as well when you're looking at it. But these are the different entities that are producing coal-fired power for Illinois and contributing significantly to climate change. So just thinking about like the health impacts of coal too, because although climate is very important, we also have to realize that our issues are interrelated, and it's not just a climate issue, it's also a health issue, and it's also just like an environmental issue when taking care of our waterways and our places and spaces around us. So the impacts from coal are respiratory, cardiovascular, and they can impact our nervous systems as well. It can contribute to asthma, lung cancer, heart failure, and strokes. Also, there are 584 coal ash ponds in the US. These are like ponds that basically have like once the coal is actually burned and they use the steam to turn that turbine, they basically put in water to like quench the fire, and then the coal that can't be used anymore, they basically put in a pond right next to the factory, and it's just a slurry of like coal ash and water. And it has serious heavy metals in it, which is a huge problem too. And as I mentioned before, it predominantly affects people of color in low-income communities because we have traditionally put coal-fired power plants and landfills and things like that in communities of color. And that's because of a long history of a lot of environmental racism, frankly. And so there's like a couple of reasons why going solar and like promoting renewable energy is really important, and that's a huge one. So kind of thinking about, okay, so there's this big problem, what can we do? Well, there's actually a lot we can do, which is really exciting. There are over 100 million people who are represented in the US that either belong to a city or state that is looking into going 100% renewable energy, and they're trying to do this in a bunch of different ways. So the states that are in green are states that have committed to 100% renewable energy, and same with the little cities. The yellow states and cities are where campaigns are taking place to try to get to 100% renewable energy. And then the green, like I was saying, was where cities have committed. And then the blue is where mayors have committed. So of course, it's better if a city council takes up an ordinance and says, we are going to do this. A mayor making a commitment, of course, is very important, but it has a lot more backing when the whole city is working towards it. And then the white dots are cities who have already made it to 100% renewable energy. Which is really exciting. And so there's a lot of opportunity for us to be able to really focus on this as like a way for us to build outside of coronavirus and really build our economy in a way that really like protects people, planet, and provides the power that we need in order to be like one of the best nations on the planet. It's really exciting. So just so you can see kind of the committed cities in our area. So again, the blue is where our mayors have indicated that they are going to go 100% renewable energy. And then the cities are in green that have said they're going to go to 100% renewable energy. And so that's St. Louis, Chicago, and then I can't actually remember what the city is, so apologies. But it's really exciting that there's a bunch going on. And if you see on the map, there's also a lot of work that we can do to get our other cities on board, which is really exciting. So why solar? I guess is the question. So it doesn't take solar very long to become carbon positive. And what I mean by that is like, so you have to mine all the materials, ship the solar panels, actually think about how installing the solar panels. And basically, folks have done research saying that after 2 years, they're effectively just generating electricity for free from any environmental cost, which is one of the best options out there, because then you're really just, you have to put in that 2 years of carbon, but then like from there in, you're able to go scotch free. And so, and then like us recycling the panels and really figuring out how to do that is really important as well. But this is like a great way for us to really be able to tackle our climate work, but it also really puts people to work too, which is exciting. Talking about going and putting people to work. So solar photovoltaic installers are actually one of the fastest growing occupations in the country, right in front of wind turbine service technicians. And so it's definitely been a huge trend. In our company, even when I started 3 years ago, I would say there were about 30 people and now there are 75. Like Missouri even has one of the highest growth charts as well. So in addition to like being able to really employ people, put people to work and take care of climate change, there are also other benefits. And I just want to like put this in the scope for you. So if you're an average home basically uses about 11,000 kilowatt hours a year, and a 7.7 kilowatt system can typically offset that. And so if you're thinking about like the impact of what one person can do, this is kind of what it looks like when it comes to going solar. So, and this is if you have an average house. So like if you have a really, really big house or a company that you're thinking about going solar, this is actually a huge benefit that can, that you can claim as something that you've done for the planet. Basically it offsets 14,000 miles approximately driven by an average passenger vehicle, or 775,000 cell phones can be charged, or it's equivalent to planting 100 trees and having them grow for 10 years, or removing 6,640 pounds of coal. And when you start adding up how much impact that has, especially when it comes to what we install, it becomes enormous. So this is just our, like, if we took all the installations that we've ever done, and that is about 24 megawatts of solar, and you put them all together in 1 year. And this is assuming that we stopped at 2020 and we built no more, but we've already built 100 more projects. So I'm just going off the end of 2019 numbers. But like for our 1 year, if we just went off the 2019 numbers, we would be taking 54 million miles driven off of the road. We'd be charging 2 billion smartphones. We'd be offsetting 24 million pounds of coal, and then planting essentially 364,000 tree seedlings for 10 years. And this is just in 1 year. So imagine what we could do as a nation and what we could do as a region in the Midwest if we really dove into this. It's really exciting. So now I'm going to pass it on to Eric to talk about how you can help act on climate and go solar, straight up solar.
Great, thank you, Natalie. And thanks for the great presentation on how we can all address climate change in the Midwest and what we can do individually here. So how can you get started? What individual action you can take? Obviously, you can get started by thinking of putting a solar array on your house, and Straight Up Solar is a turnkey solar installer. We handle everything from the design to the permitting process to the installation. So here's a simple kind of 1 through 5 process. You can basically just share your information with us, call us at 844-97-SOLAR, or go to our website at www.straightupsolar.com. Contact us, make sure you have 12 months of your energy bill, share your address, and our solar support specialist will just get you started by looking at your roof, seeing if solar is a pretty good option. If you're still pretty enthusiastic, we'll get you in touch with one of our project developers. We'll develop a customized system solution for you. They actually have a software program that can put the panels on your roof, see how it's done. Everything we're doing now is virtual. Our conversations and our proposals will be done online. If the proposal meets your budget needs, your energy savings needs, your environmental needs, we're excited you'll sign a contract with our project developer. We'll move you over for steps 3 through 5, which is our project management. And again, Straight Up Solar, we handle everything. We'll do the engineering design work. We'll handle the applications, the permitting, the rebate programs, whether you're in Missouri or the solar renewable energy credits in Illinois. We'll handle all those processes for you. Then we'll set you up with our installed crew. We're really proud to have a very highly certified trained solar installers. That's all they do. They can usually put up an array within a day or 2 days on your roof. We'll get you energized, and then you can start enjoying your new solar array, your offsetting, the energy usage and the power of the sun into your home. We're getting a little background music here. I don't know if you can hear that, but I just wanted to mention, Natalie mentioned all the great cities that have gone 100% clean energy or making a commitment to that. And Straight Up Solar is really proud to be part of communities who are moving in that direction through our Grow Solar program. We are the solar installer of Grow Solar St. Louis, Grow Solar Metro East in the St. Louis region, Solarize Southern Illinois, which is a group buy program in the Carbondale, Carterville, Southern Illinois region, and then Solar Urbana Champaign. And actually now I think that green dot that you mentioned up there in Southern Illinois was actually Urbana, Illinois. We're really proud to work with the city of Urbana, who has a sustainability director who manages their group buy program. So this is a way as individually you can take action to be part of a broader collective that are really trying to improve renewable energy in their own community. As more people go solar, there's a rebate program that allows you to reduce the cost of solar. So these are great programs. I encourage you to go to growsolar.org to see these programs in your region, or you can contact us at Straight Up Solar and we'll connect you to these programs. Again, it's a great way for individuals to take action, but then be part of a broader collective that not only reduces the cost of solar in the community, but improves renewable energy. And then I think our next slide, if you're interested in getting in touch with Natalie, she's at natalie@straightupsolar.com, or you can, I'll send out the link to here if you just want to contact her directly with an appointment. Natalie will be happy to talk to you and get you started on your solar path today here. And with that, that concludes our presentation, Natalie, but we did have a couple questions from our audience. If I can throw your way, we have a couple minutes if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So Natalie, one of the questions that came up was that there's different sources of emissions that affect greenhouse gases in the world or in our community, whether it's like transportation or buildings. How do those all kind of rank in terms of impact on the greenhouse gases?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And so as I was saying, that energy is one of the top greenhouse gas emissions, but then there are a plethora of others. Some of the highest greenhouse gas contributors do include transportation, and that's why it's important to think about shifting to electric vehicles, as well as like supporting public transportation overall. And then also just like construction and building of processes and efficiency. Honestly, if you can't afford solar or want to do something more immediately, doing building efficiency is like really important and actually has a huge amount of impact. And it saves you a ton of money, to be honest. Like, I mean, solar does too, but like that all is like really good. Other, I guess, sectors that have pretty large impacts on climate change include like agriculture and forestry. So reducing your meat consumption can help pretty significantly, because a lot of forests are burned so that we can basically grow cattle. And also cattle create a lot of methane too. And so like between those two things, it's just not great. And then of course there are other things like airlines and the amount of goods that we just consume and the amount of materials and transportation that all takes. So there's a lot of sectors that are contributing to climate change. And if anybody is interested, I can also email you a breakdown that I have from the International Panel on Climate Change. I don't have it immediately, but there's like a really nice pie chart that kind of shows you the sectors and breaks it down to be able to give you like a really good idea of the percentages that are coming from each one.
That's great. And again, we're on Facebook Live. So if you can't send a question in on Facebook, feel free to reach out to us in Straight Up Solar's Facebook page. Natalie will be happy to answer those questions. She's our digital content manager, so she's always on our Facebook and her social media monitoring the situation. So feel free to reach out to her there. Natalie, in Illinois, they have a program called the Solar Renewable Energy Credits that solar homeowners and solar businesses can kind of take advantage of. How do renewable energy credits work in terms of kind of offsetting people's energy usage?
Yeah, that's another good question. So you might have heard of offsets or renewable energy credits in a lot of different places. Basically, what is happening is an entity is paying another entity to do an action, whether that's like putting up solar panels or planting a certain amount of trees or capturing gas in order to from landfills in order to be able to power different things. There's a bunch of different projects that can help reduce greenhouse gases basically, and someone pays for that action. So in Illinois with the solar renewable energy credits, it's quite interesting actually. The utilities are paying households to go solar and then claiming the green power basically that the households are producing. And so they're basically saying like, we will give you a X amount of dollars so that we can say that we are reaching our commitments to clean energy. So in Illinois, the utilities have to get to 25% renewable energy by 2025. And so the way that they're doing that is basically the folks are going solar and then the utilities are buying credits from that the state is managing. And then those credits are being distributed back out to people who went solar. So those people who go solar can no longer claim that green energy. They can't say I am living off of solar energy anymore, because technically that belongs to the utilities now to say that. But that's kind of how it works, and that's very similar with other things. So basically, you're paying for the right to say that you are reducing your carbon footprint or your other greenhouse gases potentially through CO2 equivalents.
Got it. And is there any similar program in Missouri around the renewable energy credits?
No, but there is a rebate that Ameren offers. That's, I believe, 25 cents per watt to go solar. So you could do that through Missouri. And then they did have a rec program a while ago, but all of those recs were basically bought up, and that ended in 2014. So they don't have something super similar in Missouri, but there's definitely been models of that. And then you could also try to sell your solar power basically on carbon markets. Sometimes people will buy that to be able to offset their energy costs with that. So there's options for that for sure.
Great. And then one final question, and it looks like, again, if you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. It looks like I just have one final question, Natalie. What would you recommend as kind of the first steps an individual could take to address climate change?
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely thinking about doing energy efficiency stuff, reducing your meat consumption, figuring out how you can drive less. And then the one thing that I recommend people doing is participating in community efforts. Doing stuff individually is really important, but creating a situation where your city basically can go to 100% renewable energy, or your company, or thinking about your large systems that you're part of, schools, universities, etc. And getting people out to vote and everything, all of that can be incredibly important to really making a huge shift. So there's a lot of personal individual things that people can do. And then I just would encourage you to take an extra step to move forward basically and try to address all of the issues through getting involved in your community, which is really, really important.
Great. Those are great recommendations, Natalie, and thank you. It was great having you on the program here and explaining about how we all can individually and collectively address climate change in our communities. It was a very informative webinar. We've recorded this webinar. Again, you can reach out to Natalie via Facebook or via email here at natalies@straightupsolar.com, or click on that link in the chat to get yourself a free, no obligation site assessment to see if solar is right for you. So with that, we'll conclude the program here. Again, go to our YouTube page at straightupsolar.com. We have a number of webinars explaining residential solar, commercial solar, and all the intricacies of how solar can be affordable and easy for you to access. So with that, I want to thank Natalie Lucas, our content manager at Straight Up Solar, for this great presentation on how we can address climate change through solar. And with that, I hope everybody enjoys the rest of the afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.